The Liverpool Overhead Railway is fondly remembered by many in the city. Its line ran from Seaforth in the north to Dingle in the south. The elevated line was closed completely in 1956 and was demolished the following year. Whenever there is a discussion about the line's demise, the same questions and at times anger always crops up. That is, why did Liverpool City Council close the line? A line that thousands used and would now be a major tourist attraction. To answer that, we first have to look at why and how the line was built. The various Liverpool docks were spread along 7 miles of the River Mersey. Intersecting them were the lines and goods yards from the various railway companies. The dock board itself also had their own dock railway, with its locos trundling up and down the dock road. Joining them was the horse-drawn traffic. The efficient operation also required the movement of dockers to load and unload the ships. At the time of its construction, the docks also required messengers passing information between the docks. All of this led to congestion and threatened the dock's efficiency. To eliminate this problem, the Mersey Docks and Harbour Board first proposed a steam-operated elevated railway to be run by themselves. Doubts were soon raised that the running of this passenger railway was outside of the Dock Board's activities. The Dock Board were to offer local business leaders the opportunity to build and operate the line instead, while they leased the various properties to the new company. This company, the Liverpool Overhead Railway, set about building the line in 1888, swapping the proposed steam operation to electric traction. The elevated line was to have a waterproof decking using curved decking plates. This design was eventually to lead to its downfall. By 1893, the first sections had opened. Later extensions to the Lancashire and Yorkshire Railway at Seaforth and Liverland in the north, and a section that took the overhead underground at Dingle, were added, completing the line's full length. Problems soon hit the overhead, with the increasing use of the telegraph and telephone, rendering the employment of the messengers redundant. This was only a minor blow. Two other problems it faced was the electrification of the lines out of Liverpool Exchange, and worse was the increasing competition from the Liverpool tramways. To counter this, the speed of the overhead trains was increased. This increase of speed was to put extra strain and stresses on the structure. Throughout its life, the overhead was also suffering from the Dock Board's railway running underneath. Although fitted with baffles to deflect the blast from the locomotives, sulphurous smoke and steam was slowly attacking the structure from below. The Second World War saw several sections of the overhead structure badly damaged by enemy action. Repairs were soon put in hand, but, behind the scenes, some were of the opinion that the overhead was getting in the way, and all that steel could be put to better uses for a country suffering with shortages. At the time, their controversial suggestions were soon put aside. But what wasn't put aside, however, was the condition of the structure. The repairs revealed that the line had a problem. Those curved decking plates were an ideal water trap, water collecting in a dip between them, causing serious corrosion. Coupled to that was the sulphurous corrosion eating away from underneath. Some patching of the decking had been undertaken in the past, but the situation was now becoming serious. A worker mentioned that the rot was so bad he could poke a hole through it with his finger. The Overhead Railway commissioned a survey of the structure to see exactly how bad things were. They were very bad, the repair bill coming to £2 million. According to the Bank of England's inflation calculator, that figure today would now be over £41 million, a price the small companies simply couldn't afford. When the railways were nationalised in 1948, the line was deemed just a small isolated line, so it did not become part of British Rail, so the railway was on its own. The directors and shareholders voted to close the line, being highly unlikely to raise sufficient funds. The company realised the line's future was closely linked to the fortunes of the Port of Liverpool. The dock's importance was starting to diminish. Labour force cuts, closure of warehousing, plus the rise in private car ownership was going to take its toll. The Overhead Company obtained a Government Act to close the line in August 1956. Inevitably, there was a public outcry. Local MPs and unions were to try but failed to get the government to save the line. The council too tried, but the government was not willing to provide financial aid to help. Any transfer of ownership would have required another government act. The council's finances couldn't stretch to purchasing the line. The funds already dedicated to rebuilding the city after the war and its wider economy. The arguments on how and who should save the line rumbled on. Alderman J. Braddock, leader of the council, said that Liverpool was willing to pay a share, but the House of Commons pointed out that the corporation had always competed with the overhead company, and only recently had extended their number 16 bus from Seaforth to Liverland, the last section where there wasn't direct competition. The Minister of Transport was to argue that the matter was a local one and not for the government. One MP who was on the railway side was Graham Page, MP for Crosby. He held a conference at Alexandra Hall in Crosby. At the same time, the Overhead Railway said they could continue for a further 6 months, providing finance was provided for maintenance by Liverpool City Council and other local councils. The cash-strapped councils, though, still couldn't find the funds, especially with no help coming from the government. Things were just going round in circles, with neither the local councils or the government willing to foot the bill. The railway was doomed. The local press had paid a great deal of attention to the line's closure, and came up with suggestions on how it could be saved. One idea was the formation of a Merseyside Passenger Transport Authority to coordinate public transport on Merseyside. This idea was eventually to happen with the 1968 Transport Act, and it would lead to the construction of the Merseyrail Underground and bus integration. Sadly, it was too late to save the overhead. Many point out what a tourist attracted the line would have been today. Certain parts of the route, yes, others perhaps not so much, sections still being somewhat run down even today. It has to be realised too that Liverpool tourism didn't really take off in a big way till the mid to late 1980s, so the overhead would have required large subsidies. It would also have been little use in linking up the lines in the way the Merseyrail Underground has, with it hugging the docks and going nowhere near Liverpool Exchange, Central or Lime Street. So, why did Liverpool Council close the overhead railway? Well, they didn't. With the failure of the government and the councils to provide funding, the privately owned overhead railway company, the builders and operators of the line throughout its entire existence, simply decided to cut their losses and close and demolish the line.